It's far too early on a Wednesday, and this specific Wednesday, November 6th, 2024, I woke up and for some reason decided that I needed to check my phone. I don't know why I did. Maybe just can't help but verify what I was seeing last night. Didn't watch any live streams or anything like that. I just checked my phone before I went to bed and saw that he was only two electoral votes away from winning, and that his popular vote was much higher. And it got me thinking. As we, from what it looks like so far, elect Donald Trump again, I wonder, we saw a trend online and in other communication mediums that was confusing compared to the results. I don't think that that's cheating or any other outlandish claim. I think that what we saw were what you would consider armchair voters. They're armchair activists, and I want to acknowledge that that's what America is all about, and that just because I don't agree with who we elected as the president of the United States, that doesn't necessarily mean that the system broke in some way. I do believe that the this fictional thing that I keep bringing up as this movement online to accept misinformation and bad information and misrepresentation and things like that as fact, I think that did play a role, and that's just a personal opinion. But his election definitely tells us that people believe that the president has the ability to do something to change your current state of affairs. Things like inflation, things like the involvement of war that's happening in another country that you don't agree with, the things like the cost of eggs and the cost of gas and what you perceive as being an invasion of foreign people into our country. Whether I agree with any of that or not, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you believed. And whether you showed up to a Trump rally or waved a Trump flag or did any Trumpy thing, that doesn't really matter. Because at the end of the day, as we saw the ramped down version of MAGA, we see that it's still there. And that people that don't necessarily agree with the MAGA movement or even wanted this person to be in the White House, that didn't really matter either. All that you cared about was that Kamala Harris or the Democratic Party didn't really represent you, didn't represent your interests, didn't represent a plan that made any sense to you. And that's fine. There's no but there. That's just fine. Because that's how elections go. I don't know how to feel about Donald Trump having 4 more years of being the president, being the most talked about person in America. I don't know how I feel about my children who will, in whole, all 4 of them, be adults during the Trump presidency. and most of them in some kind of way affected by his rhetoric and his potential policies that he's going to enact, especially if we see signs that Project 2025 is a real threat of being implemented. Now, there are a lot of legal hurdles that would have to happen. For those of you who have read it, there's a lot of hopeful thinking that they can do some of this stuff, but a lot of concerns with actually getting it out the door. But there's plenty of things that are actually pretty simple if they just get everybody behind the process. If they win a Senate majority, which it looks like they're going to, when I say they, I'm talking about Republicans at this point, then they have a better shot at Project 2025, which would dismantle a lot of things that keep us together. But people who have voted don't really see that as being likely, or they do, and they see that being an advantage to them. I don't know. I'm still trying to wake up, and I haven't had any coffee yet, and I'm still trying to understand it all. But I guess I don't have to. I mean, really, like, why even make a video about my reaction to presidential election? You know what? Our generation memorializes what they're thinking and makes these statements. Instead of having a written statement that's sent to a newspaper and hope that it's going to be on some kind of opinion section in a newspaper, our generation just does this on YouTube. They just post this stuff on YouTube and Instagram and wherever they can. And that's just how we work. And that's fine. And hopefully this is something that somebody looks back at and listens to and says, okay, well, this is how somebody thought, referenced the election. There's some commentary to the history books. This is a historical situation, right? The second president ever to have been reelected after a gap. And just proof that there wasn't enough to dissuade having a Republican in the White House for a while, regardless of who it was. I come back to that. It wasn't about electing Donald Trump. That's not why he got elected. Not with the rhetoric that I've heard. My interpretation is that we have yet another year where anything but a Democrat was chosen. That's my interpretation. And I could be wrong, and I don't give a shit. But that's what I'm going to believe. That Donald Trump is not a savior. Donald Trump is a liar and a fuckface. And we're just going to deal with him for 4 years. That's what's going to happen. And I don't want to see a bunch of, violence against him or violence against anyone. I'm outside of Portland, Oregon. They boarded up their windows last night because they knew that there was potentially going to be a riot. I don't know if that ever happened. I don't get that from the mob. I don't get local discussions about what's going on because we were just so nervous to even talk about it. I haven't looked that up yet. But I'm going to start my work day. And my ADHD is gonna be high, and I'm gonna try to reconcile this as I go, and try to get through a day where I'm not thinking about my children and whether they're going to be allowed to exist after this. That's the reality. That's the worry as a dad, that LGBTQ kids are the targets of some mass cleansing that it seems like the majority of people are just okay with. Because, again, our elected officials will just do this stuff if they decide that that's what they want to do. There's a much bigger threat of unilateral action because they claim that that's what their constituents want, because that's all they need to do. That's all they need to do is claim it. My niece and nephew who are biracial, they're at risk of not having the same opportunities that their parents' generation had in terms of, making it above the hurdles that they have as people with brown skin. That's really at risk. I don't think that anybody who voted for Donald Trump realized that. Again, they didn't vote for Donald Trump. They voted for Republicans so that they thought that they could get back to some sense of normalcy. I don't know if you understand how the economy works. It doesn't just get to deflate. If we deflate, we lose credibility on the financial market. If we deflate, so much more stuff happens. The idea that everyone was going to lower the cost of groceries, lower the cost of gas through just law changes. The price index for the cost of goods went up. Not just the price of goods, the cost of goods went up. And it wasn't just regulatory. It wasn't just everybody is seeing regulatory change and isn't liking it. Guess what? Some of that regulation was a minimum wage that everybody voted in. Do you want to see that go away? Are we back to federal minimum wage of 7.25? Is that where we're at? We get rid of everybody's minimum wage of $15 an hour and we go right back to federal minimum wage so that we can save money. Because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about saving money by trying to actually affect the manufacturing of goods, because that went up. And I'm assuming, but I don't know, that no one who voted Republican and wants to see that as an economic change realized exactly what they were doing. There was a plan to just get rid of a bunch of regulations and hope that that's going to reduce the cost of goods. That's a hope. There was no plan for that. And the regulations that would actually reduce the cost of goods, because the cost of doing things goes up over time. Those regulations were there to protect us. Those regulations went in because of votes, and they can be dismantled. Everything from DEI, which helps educate people and get us a more diverse workforce that with a lot more choices. I'm a manager. I love having choices of different people in walks of life that are well skilled and have a great sense of accomplishment and responsibility to the opportunities they were given. And what happens when that goes away? When everybody who is underprivileged, now whether that's people of a certain race or certain skin color or a certain disability or whatever, honestly, that none of that really matters until you take away the opportunities of those who are impoverished and not able to just afford college. And that includes white people. That includes people of all kinds of economic backgrounds. So now you have, if you get rid of all of that, you frustrate all of the people that you thought that you were affecting, and instead you're affecting a much wider range of people. What happens then? The poverty level stays the fucking poverty level. The people in poverty stay in fucking poverty. But that's how capitalism works, right? There has to be poverty in order to be rich, right? You have to have impoverished people in order to have rich people. Because that's how capitalism works. It's the effort that you put into shit that's what matters, right? Now I'm kind of fired up. I'm actually waking up and I'm fired up and I'm frustrated, and I just don't think that anybody understands how any of this shit works. And it's really, really frustrating. But, you know, where my wife really wants to move out of the country, she just wants to go to Norway or something. I'm realistic that this is 4 years of bullshit, and then we have four years in the future of some kind of actual change or not change, and we just keep going, and we've done that for generations. As long as we don't actually dismantle the Constitution and we actually find ourselves in a totalitarian state, which is, I guess, possible now, we'll live through this and we'll just look back and say, oh, that's what happened. As long as he doesn't piss off Russia and Russia sends his nukes over here and just bombs the shit out of all of us. As long as he doesn't piss off North Korea and they bomb the shit out of us. As long as he doesn't do something goddamn stupid and start a new world war that sends my kids to the front lines. I don't know, like, it's then just business as usual. We deal with it for another 4 years. We dealt with it for 4 years from 2017 to 2020. And we survive and we move on, which we did the last time. And that's about as best I can hope for. Again, I don't like Donald Trump. Donald Trump, prove me wrong. Prove this middle finger wrong. Give me a reason to bring us down. Give me a reason. Because those of us who didn't vote for you want to keep this middle finger up for the next 4 years. And this is going to cramp up. Just the constant middle finger to you, not to the presidency, but to you. Again, this is all about you, because this is what you wanted. You wanted this to all be about you. So prove us fucking wrong. Give us a reason to give a shit about you. And not because you're doing something stupid or something totalitarian or fascist, but that you've done something actually fucking right for once. Give us a reason to bring this finger down. Otherwise, it's going to stay there the whole fucking time you're in office. And that's going to be your legacy. A bunch of middle fingers to the president. And that's just fucking dumb. You orange motherfucker. Congratulations. You get to run the country again and see these middle fingers every day. I'm sure that you're going to love that. Just don't send the military out after us, you know? After me. Just because I raised this middle finger, because this is the First Amendment. Guess what? You're a fucktard. And I can say that because I'm an American. Go fuck yourself. But please be a president that we can deal with for 4 years at the very least. Be a great president if you could. If you even have that in you. You didn't for 4 years. I'd love to see it happen. But you know what? The other piece of this is the Congress, who has a Senate majority of Republicans. And I really want to see that Republicans finally, after the 20 years of bullshit since the Bush administration, I would love to see that Republicans redeem themselves finally, and they actually have plans that they look to actually accomplish, that they find some kind of middle ground with the House, and they actually accomplish things that people will be able to use to progress in this country, and not just every rich motherfucker in the country. Not the bozos and the muskoxes. Give us a reason to give a shit about you. Evidently you did in the election. So let's see that keep going. But if all this turns out to be is a dismantling of America or some other bullshit, I'm really hoping that's just a bunch of Ma's lures and just the amount of misinformation and rhetoric around bullshit. I really hope that's what it is. If it's not, if we find out, guess what? Everyone's fucked. You get to prove to everybody that you were the downfall of America. And I'm sure that that's the legacy you really wanted. Oh, man. Let's find out what we're going to do, America. Let's figure out how this is all going to work out. Let's try not to get disenfranchised either. Again, my wife really wants to move. And my kids were like, we're just going to move to Canada. The idea that all you can do is just move to another country and it all is better. Like, that's not how that works. It's not how that works. We get to be here. We get to continue to be citizens and actually fight for the freedoms that we want. That's how this actually does work. So let's do that. Let's just figure ourselves out, fight for what we need to, and set all this other bullshit aside. If we can. And if this turns out to be the worst, then we fight for the best, even in the worst of times. It's like a marriage. You may not like the person, and they may do stupid shit, and sometimes it's irreconcilable. I get that. But I think that marriage is worth it if you've actually entered a relationship with somebody that you really care about. And if you enter a relationship with your country and you really care about it, then you stick with it through the best times, worst times, all that other stuff. It's called commitment. And I know it's hard for some people, but it's what we have to do. So, sorry for having to post something that's just frustrating and just a rant. But I mean, I just need to memorialize this. I need to get it all out. I need to raise my middle finger and point it at Donald Trump, and not at the presidency, but just at Donald Trump. Point it at everybody who supports Donald Trump in politics, because this is all their fault, not necessarily the voters. This is all their fault. This is the Ma's fault. Take a big middle finger at the Ma and tell it to go fuck itself, so that I can get on with the rest of my day, and honestly with the rest of the next 4 years. So, thanks for listening if you did. And check out Internet Ate My Baby, because I guess I'm going to have a lot of interesting content for the next 4 years, because that's how that all works. He's the economy of bullshit. So, I get to mention his name. He who should not be named, but is going to be. I'm gonna try. I'm really trying to keep Internet Ate My Baby, the podcast I'm trying to work on, out of politics for the most part, but it's gonna circle back around because that's kind of how the internet is these days. It's very political. It's very much about, communicating the worries and the thoughts and the likes and the dislikes of all people of the world. And there's so much talked about with politics and bullshit that the internet just spews it. It's a constant broken record. And unfortunately, that's what we're in for in terms of having any kind of content, some interest in actually creating something that speaks to people on a meaningful level, especially about online communication. So I'm in for a little bit of a challenge in terms of not only making this thing profitable and trying to make it sustainable, trying to make it something, a labor of love, and not just another job, a second shift I have to do. That's going to be frustrating, and I'm not looking forward to that. But follow along. Maybe it becomes funny. I don't know, because that's where I'm trying to go. I want this to become funny. The stuff I'm writing is going to be a lot better, and I really hope that you follow along. Internet Ate My Baby is on YouTube. It's going to be on Spotify. It's going to be on iHeartRadio if I can get it there. It's going to be on Apple Podcasts. It's also going to be on repeatersignal.com, and it will have links to wherever you go, and it'll have links to places to have conversations. I'd really like that to happen. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I really don't. I don't care. If we never have a conversation about it, I'm just talking into the void. I was talking into the void to begin with. It was just in my own head. This way, it's somewhere. So anyway, guys, I love you. No matter who you voted for, I care about you. I want you to have good mental health. I want you to not feed the maw. Please don't. Please don't let this next 4 years be 8 years ago. Let's not talk about bleach in people's veins. Let's not talk about all of the other misinformation that Donald Trump released into the internet, and it stuck and it fed AI. Let's try not to do that this time, please. Especially since AI is listening. We can't keep feeding AI the bullshit of America and other countries, and say that that's progress. Okay? All right. Well, thanks for listening. I guess I'll talk at you later.